They say every choice comes with a cost, but what happens when the price is the love you've built over decades? Today's story, The Taste of Regret, takes us on an emotional journey through love, betrayal, and the desperate fight for redemption. It's a tale that will pull at your heartstrings and keep you holding your breath until the very end. If you love stories filled with raw emotion, suspense, and second chances, then you're in the right place. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, like this video, and turn on notifications so you never miss another story like this one. Now grab your favorite drink, get comfortable, and let's dive into The Taste of Regret. As I stood at the kitchen sink, the sun streaming through the window, I felt the warmth of the morning light contrasting sharply with the chill in my heart. The smell of freshly brewed coffee wafted through the air, but even the most delightful of aromas couldn't mask the turmoil brewing inside me. I glanced at the calendar hanging on the wall. It was our anniversary, the day David and I were supposed to celebrate our love. Instead, I felt like an imposter in my own life, an actress playing a role that had become all too painful. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. My reflection stared back at me, and I barely recognized the woman looking back. The soft lines around my eyes told stories of joy, but the shadow lurking beneath them whispered of guilt and betrayal. David, my husband of 20 years, was out running errands. He didn't suspect a thing, and that's what hurt the most. He trusted me completely, and I had shattered that trust in a moment of weakness. The affair had been an impulsive mistake, an escape from the monotony that had seeped into our marriage. I had met Mark at a community event. He was charismatic, with a charm that drew me in like a moth to a flame. It started innocently enough, a flirtatious banter over glasses of wine that soon turned into late-night confessions. Before I knew it, we were crossing lines I never thought I would. What began as a thrill became a passionate entanglement, and in those fleeting moments, I felt alive again. But reality was a persistent companion, reminding me of my vows to David, of the life we had built together. My phone buzzed on the countertop, pulling me from my reverie. It was a message from Mark, his name lighting up the screen. My heart raced as I hesitated, then reluctantly picked it up. "Can't stop thinking about you. Last night was incredible." A pang of guilt washed over me as I read his words. I had just had an unforgettable evening with him, a night filled with whispered secrets and stolen kisses. But it wasn't just about the physicality, it was the connection I felt with him, something that had been missing from my marriage for years. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, the desire to respond battling against the responsibility I owed to David. Suddenly, the sound of the front door opening broke the tension in the air. I quickly set the phone down, trying to wipe the guilt off my face. David walked in, his arms laden with groceries and a broad smile on his face. "Laurel, you wouldn't believe the deals I found today." His enthusiasm was infectious, and for a moment, I allowed myself to bask in the comfort of his presence. "Hey, that's great. What did you get?" I asked, forcing a smile. He began unloading the bags, chatting about his finds, and I listened, nodding along, feeling a growing sense of unease. How could I possibly continue to live this double life? As we moved through the day, I fought to suppress the guilt that bubbled beneath the surface. David and I shared a lovely dinner, reminiscing about our early days together, the excitement, the passion, and the dreams we had for our future. But with every laugh we shared, every affectionate glance, the weight of my secret felt heavier. Later that night, after David had fallen asleep, I found myself wide awake, staring at the ceiling. The guilt was suffocating, and I knew I had to make a choice. I could either come clean to David, shattering the life we had built, or I could keep the secret, living a lie that was slowly eating away at my soul. I tossed and turned, my mind racing with thoughts of Mark and the thrill of our clandestine meetings. They were intoxicating moments that brought out a side of me I thought I had lost. But then there was David, the man who had stood by my side through thick and thin, who had loved me unconditionally. My heart ached at the thought of hurting him, and yet, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted within me. The next morning, I woke up determined. I would tell David everything. As I made breakfast, I practiced what I would say in my mind. Would he shout? Would he cry? Would he throw me out of our home? I braced myself for the fallout, but deep down, I knew I had to be honest. When David sat down at the table, his usual cheerfulness faded as he sensed my tension. "What's wrong, Laurel?" he asked, concern etched on his face. "David, we need to talk," I said, my voice trembling. He looked at me with an intensity that made my heart race, and I felt the weight of my confession pressing against my chest. "What about?" he asked, a hint of apprehension creeping into his tone. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the inevitable heartbreak that would follow. "I've made a terrible mistake. I've been unfaithful." Silence enveloped the room, the weight of my words hanging heavily in the air. David's face paled, and I watched as his expression shifted from shock to pain. "What do you mean?" he finally whispered, his voice barely above a whisper. I recounted the events, the attraction I had felt for Mark, the moments that had spiraled out of control. Each word felt like a dagger, piercing through the love we had shared. I watched as the hurt washed over him, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I thought we were happy," he said, his voice breaking. "I thought I knew you. I thought I knew myself too," I replied, tears streaming down my face. "But I lost sight of who I was and what we had. I'm so sorry, David." He shook his head, his hands trembling. "I don't even know what to say. How could you do this to us?" The conversation spiraled into a painful exchange of emotions, anger, sorrow, and disbelief. We were two people trying to navigate the wreckage of our lives, our love tangled in a web of betrayal. Days turned into weeks as we tried to pick up the pieces. The path to forgiveness was rocky, and the scars from my infidelity ran deep. David's trust in me had been shattered, and I found myself battling against the guilt that consumed me. I sought solace in therapy, both individually and as a couple, hoping to mend what was broken. Yet, amidst the heartache, something unexpected happened. As we worked through our pain, I began to rediscover the love I had for David. He too was struggling but showed an incredible strength that inspired me to fight for our marriage. Slowly, we started to rebuild, brick by brick, day by day. One evening, as we sat on the porch, watching the sun dip below the horizon, David turned to me and said, "I don't know if we'll ever be the same, but I want to try. I want to fight for us." Tears brimmed in my eyes as I took his hand. "I'll fight too. I'll spend the rest of my life trying to earn back your trust." In that moment, I realized that love isn't just about the good times, it's also about navigating the storms together. Though our journey was far from easy, I felt a flicker of hope igniting within me. Together, we would forge a new path, one that embraced our imperfections and the lessons learned from our painful past. As I leaned into David, feeling his warmth envelop me, I understood that while I had taken a detour into darkness, love could still be a guiding light, leading us back to one another. And perhaps, just perhaps, we would find a way to taste the sweetness of forgiveness amid the bitterness of regret. Love, trust, and forgiveness. Three fragile threads that hold relationships together. The taste of regret isn't just a story, it's a reminder of how easy it is to lose your way, but also how powerful it can be to fight for redemption. If this story resonated with you, leave a comment below and share your thoughts. I'd love to hear from you. And if you haven't already, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs to hear this story too. Thank you for joining me on this heartfelt journey. Until next time, remember, love isn't perfect, but it's always worth fighting for. Take care, and I'll see you in the next story.